Good afternoon and welcome to our first meeting in June. We have a few people in our audience tonight and hopefully a few more watching us on TV, our Electric City Television. Our invocation tonight will be given by Councilman John Roberts, and I will lead us in respects to the flag. Please rise.
Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight and ask your blessing on this city, the administration, and employees and leaders. Tonight, as we discuss the financial planning and health of our city, ask the decisions we make here tonight regarding our budget be for the greater good of all of our citizens and community. Also, Lord, as our children prepare for their summer vacation from school, we ask that you watch over them and keep them safe and sound this summer. As always, we ask that you continue to bless our military, police, firefighters, and first responders as they place their lives in harm's way to protect us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We had a special recognition of a young man who was in one of our citizens that was in the Scripps National Spelling Bee. He might be running a little late, so we'll keep an eye on him and hopefully we'll be able to recognize him when he comes in. We'll go on with the meeting. The minutes of the May 13th meeting were distributed. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Not hearing any, do I have a motion to approve?
So move. Second.
First by Mr. John Roberts, a second by Mr. Kyle Newton. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes of May 13th pass unanimously. We have one item of old business, and that item is request consideration of an ordinance to rezone 1509 East River Street from R5 Single Family Residential to LO Limited Office. Ms. McEwen?
Mayor and Council, this item was on your May 13th council agenda for referral to the Planning Commission. It's coming back to the City Council tonight for first reading. The Planning Commission considered the request on June 4th and recommended approval. And I'll let Maurice McKenzie, our Planning and Development Director, to give some of the details on this request.
Thank you. As Mr. McKeown mentioned, this did go before Planning Commission last week, and they did recommend approval of this, but the specifics of this is that the applicant proposes to rezone this property to LO Limited Office in order to bring it into zoning conformance. Right now, on the property, there is a commercial style building, and it has a parking lot. So for all intents and purposes, it should be some sort of commercial. But it was there is an R5 single family residential. It was previously in use as a non-conforming hair salon. The property went vacant, so as a result of that, it reverts back to R5 status and all the requirements that pertain to R5, which is single family residential. In order to allow a commercial use, the applicant is requesting to rezone the property to LO Limited Office, and this will allow offices and related uses that are generally compatible with a surrounding neighborhood. The LO is one of our less intensive zoning categories in the commercial district. So that's where we are with things. Again, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of it last week, and if rezoned, the owner, the tenants, when they occupy the building, they must comply with all of our zoning guidelines, all of our sign regulations, and related codes that pertain to this particular piece of property. Any questions?
Thank you, sir. Questions, comments? Ms. Stewart?
Yes, this is actually right down the street from where I live on Lampford Street, and it had, like Maurice said, it's been a beauty salon for several years before it went vacant. And I met with the owner of the property a few weeks ago, and we talked about all the different issues and different zoning classifications. And I think what we came up with would be the limited office is the best use of the property, because again, don't want to deny him use for utilizing his property, and but again, it does abut residential property, and I think this would be our best use. But I would like to, stress, to the owners that it's very important, that you relay what Mr. McKenzie has said about making sure that you comply with the zoning, the signage, and the related codes, because I know we've had some real issues with the tenant who wants to go in there about wanting to comply, with the city's regulations to take down things that were in violation. I think we've issued some summons, and, don't have a problem moving forward, but I just want to make sure that you are aware that anything that is in violation does come back to the property owner, not to the tenant. So I just want to make sure that, that tenant complies with all of our regulations, because we had had some issues in the past. With that being said, I'll make a motion that we approve this on first reading.
First by Mr. Stewart,
Second.
second by Mr. Harbert. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously on the first reading. We'll move on to new business, and we have 2 items of new business, and the first item is request consideration of the ordinance adopting the budget for the fiscal year 2019 through 2020. A small line item, but a big conversation. Mr. McEwen.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Per state law and also our city municipal code, the city manager is required to present a balanced budget to the city council, and the council is required to adopt an annual budget. For the benefit of the public, our budget ordinance before you is for the fiscal year commencing July the 1st, 2019, and ending June the 30th, 2020. Council held a budget work session on May the 22nd, 2019 to review the budget. A public hearing was also held today, June the 10th at 5 p.m. We did not receive any comments. This is the first reading, and the second reading is scheduled for June the 24th. And let me go over some of the budget highlights. The total budget for all funds is $78.9 million. The budget provides no tax increase and maintains millage as 116 mills. No reduction in services. Seeing growth in the general fund revenue from the hospitality tax revenue standpoint, and from the general revenue as well, which is contributing from a healthy economy that we have. The residential building activity continues to increase. Through year to date, today we've had 145 permits for new residential construction valued at $13.5 million. And so that's a good healthy growth there. We're continuing to see that trend continue. The budget maintains the city's financial metric targets with a general fund unassigned fund balance of 33%. And what that is, that's a percentage which is roughly 4 months of our total budget for the general fund. It's your rainy day fund. It's our deposits of cash as far as our tax deposits and other revenue we receive. It's very cyclical, so it comes in different cycles. And so this helps float the money from period to period when we receive our revenue. And also if we were having a storm or other natural event to occur, it's also your savings account, if you will, for that. It's the second year of our utility capital investment rate path of 6% water and 3.5% for sewer. As far as personnel, we have no health insurance premium increases. We've done a good job at managing our risk and our health premiums through our health clinic, our employee health clinic that we have offered, and that's done a good job for us by keeping our premiums lower and also not having an increase this year. It also includes a 2.25% cost of living adjustment for city employees. The inflation that was calculated by the state and provided to us for this period was 2.4%. So we're trying to keep up with inflation as far as the payroll for our employees. Budget adds 3 new firefighter positions, a building maintenance technician position, a beautification horticulturist position. And as far as capital, we have a capital fund, and within that capital fund, we have $3.1 million in capital improvements. Some is carried over. We have City Hall complex renovation, $2.8 million that is set aside. We've carried over those funds, and that project will move forward this year. Fire Station 1 has a sleeping quarters upgrades of $300,000, and we have 1.2 million in capital equipment rolling stock. For poll works equipment, this is your police cars, tractors, and so forth, and we just call that rolling stock. So 1.2 million there. 5.5 million for a parking garage, and in recreation projects we have a total of 9.9 million. 2.1 million is funded by cash funded projects. That's a rehab of the rec center, crosswalks downtown, under the bridge project, and some miscellaneous projects. And then we have 7.8 million that we take out a revenue bond for, and that's to complete the recreation center fields and also be a gateway to the greenway. And then that bond would also include construction, finish engineering and construction for the Whitner Creek Greenway that would connect from Lindley Park all the way through the rec complex down south along the Flume. As far as the water fund, we have 2.6 million in capital improvements, and the sewer fund 2.1 million in capital improvements. And I want to thank the finance team for putting together the budget along with all our division heads. It is a 6-month process. We start the finance department kind of gets started right in December, a little bit before Christmas, and we really get well underway in January. So it's a long process to put it together. A lot of edits, a lot of thought goes into it, and of course your input. And so we appreciate their time and their efforts to put together a great budget before you that takes advantage of our growth, but also has no reduction in services, only enhancements through capital investment. So with that, we can take any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Questions, comments? I know we had a budget session a couple weeks ago, and here you guys had a couple today. Mr. Chapman?
Mine's more just a comment. I just want to thank the finance committee, or finance department, because I think it speaks a lot to our municipality as far as how well we manage our finances, and because I think this is, I know since I've been on council, this is, I think, 11 years, there's never been an increase in millage. And, you know, we had a reduction, although we've had several unfunded mandates that we've had to increase sewer fees and water fees to keep up with the EPA's regulations, what they've given us. But I think as long as we move forward, continue to be prudent with our dollars, you know, that's a positive thing. But I think it's a lot to be said for you know, our the whole administration as far as making sure we keep on this path of being able to improve services and maintain our millage rate, because that's one of the other things that brings new people to our area. So I just want to make that comment.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for that. We appreciate that.
Mr. Horban?
I also would agree with Mr. Chapman and would like to thank the finance team and all the division heads and their hard work. And way before I came on council, you know, this council always had a conservative mindset with the public's funds, and you know, that 28% in a rainy day fund, I think sort of sets the bar for other municipalities around the state to keep that much reserve for a rainy day. And I'd just like to commend, because it's always an attempt. We can always find reasons to try to spend that rainy day money. And my hat's off to the whole city's team, you know, every division head and city manager and city manager's office for not ever raising that fund, like sort of has been a real popular thing to do around the state, and always having that for our citizens and looking out for their best interests. And for all your leadership in doing that. I'd like to make a motion to approve it on the first reading.
We'll take that motion, Mr. Harbin, second by Mr. Roberts. Mr. Roberts?
One final comment, and I support it as well, but Mr. McEwen and Margot, you all have done an excellent job in forecasting, not only this year, but years out. And that's an asset to be able to look 5 years out and manage that growth, and hopefully we'll continue to see this growth that we're experiencing right now and fund these not only our day-to-day operations, but the projects that we have on our radar. So, I'm in support of it as well.
Great. Anything else? John?
Just echoed sentiments when we're talking about an $80 million budget here, and, you know, thank y'all,
Well, thank you.
everybody, thank y'all.
Yes, the finance team are also here with us.
I see them camped out back there. Very good.
Notes ready.
Thank you. No questions, no comments. Good job. And, you know, I guess my comment would be, even though the economy is good, we could have been more aggressive this year. And so, David and his team, presented a reason why we shouldn't be more aggressive. We're not going to participate in any type of recession, I understand, if there is one. But all that sounds good. All right, so all in favor say aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously on the first reading.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our last item of new business is request consideration of a referral to the Planning Commission, a proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance as it relates to small wireless facilities. Mr. McEwen.
This item before you is doing small cell wireless facilities, and the referral tonight gets the process started by sending it to the Planning Commission. But let me tell you a little bit of the background behind it. Small cell wireless facilities are becoming more prevalent in South Carolina and across the U.S. as there's a huge investment in technology resources and developing the 5G technology. And the 5G technology requires between large cell sites, you have individual small cell sites that are usually around ground level or building level and provide service to a short distance, usually 1,200 feet to 2,000 feet. And so you'll see a lot of these popping up in Columbia. You're already seeing a lot in Charleston. So you'll see them around stadiums where there's a high usage of devices being used at one time. And we're starting to get requests from some of the providers here to put them in as well. And so it is a big asset to have that, as all the new technology coming out will be riding off of 5G. But due to the demand and since cell tower regulations in most cities and ours as well do not address this type of technology, the Municipal Association of South Carolina worked with the telecommunication industry and developed a model ordinance, and which balances the needs of cellular providers with the municipal interests. And so right now with this new technology, it's just not something we had in the zoning books. And so essentially they could go and put one anywhere. And obviously we have aesthetics and historic areas, and there's things that we want to protect and underground utility districts. And so that's not the best interest, and the utilities agreed with that. And so by doing so, this model ordinance was created with working with the two major carriers, AT&T and Verizon. We held a work session, if you remember, back in November the 26th, 2018, and heard an overview from actually he's the interim director of Municipal Association, Eric Buds. He gave us an overview of it. Since then, several things have changed. There's been some, and we suspected this would happen because we saw it in 13 other states, is that there would be legislation introduced at the state level. So there has been legislation introduced, House Bill 4262, and it was passed by the House and is moved on to the Senate. It's currently awaiting action in the Senate, and it's currently in the Senate Judiciary Committee. And they could take action on that anytime as they go back into their legislative season upcoming. What we're trying to do is there is still an agreement down in Columbia with the carriers that if you have an ordinance, now this could change, but if you have an ordinance on the books, that they would recognize some of the restrictions that you place on and place on the placement of these small cell wireless facilities, and that being within a historic district, the aesthetics and the placement requirements, co-location. So the draft that we have put together is just an edit of the model ordinance that's been agreed upon. Again, they're kind of anxiously waiting, AT&T and Verizon, for us to move forward with it because right now we don't have anything. And at the same time, it's advantageous for us to move forward before the state goes back and adopts legislation if they're going to recognize, again, our local controls on it, that would be a benefit to us instead of it just being blanket under a state law. Therefore, it's our recommendation that we move forward with the adopted of our local regulations. Maurice is here and can provide any details that you may have as this moves forward. But again, it'll come back to us from cellular towers, and we need to update that language as well. And so I'll have our staff start to take a look at that, and Mr. Stewart's has a lot of expertise in that area, and reach out to him and move forward there as well, of kind of modernizing that language and some restrictions that we're able to place on that as far as aesthetics and the placement of those large cell sites. But this, we're recommending moving forward with the small cell wireless facilities as a referral to the Planning Commission. And if you have any questions for Maurice, he's here to answer as well.
Better to come back to us at some point.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions right now, Mr. Stewart?
But, you know, I know we got our packet, but the ordinance wasn't included in our packet. I got a copy of it. I don't know if anybody else got a copy of it either. But just figuring through this, I just want to make sure, get some clarification. If the Planning Commission approves it in this format, do we have the ability to change what they approved? Or do we have to accept this in its format?
You can amend it.
Okay, because what I'm reading in here is that what they've kind of done is they looped in small cells with typical co-locate on existing towers. You don't put small cells on existing towers, and it talks about, you know, if an applicant comes in, T-Mobile wants to modify their antennas on one of our existing towers, well, they can do that under their ordinance and for $50 or $100. And, you know, I think those two things are separate. You have your co-locations on your wireless support structures, and your wireless support structures, which are identified and defined in here, means a telecommunication tower, not a utility pole or anything else. And you just don't put small cells on telecommunication towers. They go on light poles and telephone poles in neighborhoods and different things. Charlotte is doing a lot of it in their neighborhoods right now. So I think between now and then, when the Planning Commission looks at it, Maurice, you and I can have a conversation about possibly pulling that out, because I think it's two separate things we need to be looking at.
Sounds good. That's why it's good to have subject matter experts on council. Anything else? I'd entertain a motion that we refer this to the Planning Commission. First by Mr. Harbin. Second by Mr. Jeff Roberts. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. Couple things for administrative briefing. I think we have Leadership Anderson here. Somebody? Since we have some time, does anybody want to talk about the project? Put you on the spot? Maybe get you on TV and...
This year's project, many of you are probably familiar how Leadership Anderson takes on a project in addition to the nearly year-long in-depth visiting that we're doing with resources and agencies across the county. I think this year's class 35, is bitten off a pretty darn good one. We're in the midst of, we've started, an organization has been created, fundraising has started to build Anderson's first tiny home. And that's the first tiny home within the city limits, from what we understand. There's been, I think, a little bit of happenings with one at one point in the county. The mission is not just to build one house for one family. It really is to spur a couple of bigger conversations. One about, in this particular instance, the location is built in what is known as the Alphabet Streets, the historic mill neighborhood that was once thriving because of the textile mills. Well, many of those families are still there, and they feel a little bit forgotten, but they also recognize redevelopment, and this energy is just within blocks of their community. So what does affordable housing look like for that area moving forward? A tiny home type of project is definitely what that could look like for that area. And we've looked at a lot of successes across the country before we suggested this, and the class voted to move forward. We're fortunate that we have been in contact with close relations have been formed with the residents of the community, as well as the nonprofit that the tiny house is going to be turned over to, which is the Lot Project, an existing nonprofit in the community. So hopefully there's a conversation about what sustainable, affordable living can look like for some of these areas, which has brought back the conversation to city codes and what that currently looks like. Do those need to be edited a little bit moving forward for smaller footprints? I know personally I have friends and family that have downsized living quite a bit in the last dozen years, and I don't think it's just a trend. I think it's going to be, or just trendy. It's definitely a movement. Also, you know, once it turns over, it also addresses the element of homelessness. So this particular property will be taken over by the Lot Project and be transitional housing. So we're real excited about that partnership moving forward. We, to date, I think have raised about $50,000 of our $70,000 goal. Some of you in this room could have been part of that. We thank you. We're moving forward with some additional grant requests and fundraising. So I don't know if you might have any other general questions I might be able to
Good.
answer.
Thanks. Go ahead, Tom.
Explain it, what is a tiny, you said tiny home?
A tiny
Is it something like Habitat?
Yes. Traditional homes by Habitat for Humanity are typically a much larger footprint. There is a little bit of variance across the country with what a tiny home is as far as square footage. Some define them as something that is 200 square feet to 300 square feet. This one's a little bit larger, a little over 600 square feet. Spec type homes or additional properties moving forward would be much smaller, but these are not mobile properties. These actually have a foundation, and our foundation is going to be poured any day now, thanks to another in-kind gift. But the tiny homes are really a movement across the country that started a dozen years ago or so with some communities of families that just are not necessarily concerned about having a 3,000 square foot house or even a 2,000 square foot house. And it's definitely become a center of conversation in communities where the cost of living is very expensive. You know, the rents and mortgages in a lot of communities outpace income abilities. So when that gap is there for a lot of families, the tiny homes have become a conversation. And you see villages of them popping up in communities across the country. Here, hopefully, it will create interest in additional properties. We know there's already some interest in additional properties within this community, as well as possibly some additional investors and donors moving forward as well.
I have a
Jeff,
question.
go ahead.
Can you speak to the density of these units? Are these going to be on existing lots?
This particular project, we were able to assume property from an individual. He had owned the lot and he had already owned plans for this home. As a single person, he made that investment and made plans, and then he became engaged and got married, and they decided to go in a different direction for housing. But our size on this particular lot, I think, is about a third of an acre on it. In the footprint, like I said, of the home, it's about a 600 square foot. Our website has got renderings that you're welcome to go take a look at on the Facebook page and the tiny home website. There's a lot of information.
Taking the place on an existing platted lot, is that correct?
It was a vacant
Yes,
lot.
it's a
Yeah,
vacant lot.
completely vacant. Yeah.
East Street, right? East, yep.
On East Street, yeah. The class members, we all made a commitment for all 29 of us. We all made contributions and purchased the lot, purchased the plans before we started the fundraising effort.
Good. Well, thank you.
Right, like you said, the neighborhood, even though there's a lot of those families that remain in that district, there has not been any new construction or new building since what we understand. The building codes have been on record since 1985. So this is the first new construction there, and the residents are quite excited. And it's kind of a spark of hope for them that the community is interested in that area. And like I said, we've had them involved since the word go. One gentleman who's actually in a state of homelessness now from that community is even involved on the project. So it's starting a lot of great conversations.
Thank you for your leadership in that direction. Thank you. Last one, we got a Boy Scout here. I'm gonna put you on the spot. Tell us your name and your troop. And you got a project maybe? Would you mind coming down?
My name is Tyler Scanlon, and I'm with Troop 84. I'm working on my communications merit badge, so I came to this council meeting so I could learn about my community and get that requirement signed off for that.
I appreciate it. Appreciate you being a scout. Thank you, sir. Eagle Scout. Going towards Eagle?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Right now.
Good deal. Administrative briefing, Ms. McEwen.
Yes, sir. Just a couple things on the calendar. Point your attention to. We have a lot of activities going on in June. First is on Thursday, the 13th. There's actually the Chamber Small Business Awards luncheon at Tucker's from 11:45 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. If you need assistance, please contact my office. On Friday, the 14th, there's movie night in Carolina Wren Park. It'll be at 8:50 p.m. I actually just saw an email, 8:55, or when it becomes dark. Mary Poppins Returns. So I have not seen that movie, so I can't testify to it, but I imagine it's a pretty good one. And on the 15th, this is a big event for Anderson. It's the Saturday before Father's Day car show in downtown from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So we will have the main street will be blocked off in anticipation of that event. And that is a really incredible event. And so I invite everyone to come out for it in the public. And it's a very enjoyable day.
We had over 400 cars last year.
And Mr. Chapman just said there's over 400 vehicles that were in it last year. So to take a look at. And so we're looking for a big attendance this year as well.
And I think this is the 20th year.
20th year.
Cool. All right.
And also, a couple more things, Mayor. We got a busy month. On the 18th, we do invite the public out to Shock This Block. It's our final draft reveal. And this will be in the Econ and Development Office from 5:30 to 7 p.m. And this is our downtown development master plan. We've already had 1,000 people participating in it. And so we're looking to continue that at the public engagement. Thursday the 20th, we have our block party, and then the 21st, starting the 21st to the 24th, great event, Shakespeare in the Park, Carolina Wren Park, and it starts at 8 p.m. every night on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And our next council meeting is Monday the 24th at 6 p.m. With that, concludes my report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. First by Mr. Newton. Second by Mr. Chapman. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned.